it's Wes. What am I doing all dressed up here? You'll find out later on. This isn't the normal scene because I'm recording this at night. I've been testing the AD300 Pro all day, from beginning of the day to the end of the day. I have run this through I'm on my third battery charge now. This has been ridiculous. If you didn't catch it earlier on, today I posted the overheating torture test, where you get to see whether or not this thing will catch on fire if you completely go overboard on it. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. You should still watch it, it's fun. But today, and now, it's time to talk about the full review of the AD300 Pro. I tried to wear it out, I tried to find its limits. Let's see what they are. As always, starting out with the build quality. And as always, with a lot of Godox products, this can be described as solid but plasticky. At first glance, this is a really nice design. It's slick, it's stylish, to each their own. It's a matter of opinion. But when you get down to it, this is just plastic. And there's something that I want to show you. If we put the AD300 Pro in the S bracket, as you're supposed to, and you clamp this thing down, you can actually see the top of the strobe squishing down and flexing. Now, I'm not screwing this in very tight, but that doesn't make me feel very good. We'll talk more about the positioning in the S bracket a little bit later on, but since this is a recommended configuration, I would have expected it to be a little less giving in the center. Maybe I'm clamping them down too hard. But thankfully, when you're putting it in the S bracket, you really don't need to put much pressure on this. Just tighten it down just a little bit and then you're fine. But again, overall, I wouldn't want to drop this down a flight of stairs, but it's well designed, well thought out. It's really a great evolution of Godox products. Very solid fit and finish. I gotta give it an 8 out of 10. Not perfect, but it's solid. So moving right along, let's talk about the feature set. And this is usually where Godox does a great job of most of their up-and-coming products. So the basic features: this thing will recycle in 1.8 seconds at full 1:1 300 watt-second power. That's pretty solid. And you can go all the way down to 1/256 power. There you have it. And also you can turn on the decay counter, which tells you how long your flashes are going to be for, and you can turn it to 10th stop increments. Now, I love the decay time counter, but I'm not a big fan of 10th stop increments. Unfortunately, to turn one on, you turn the other on. That can be something that's split up in a later firmware update, though. They probably won't, because they don't care what I say. The biggest feature of any Godox light, let's face it, is the integration into the whole Godox lineup. There are so many transmitters and receivers and devices that all tie together, and it's an ecosystem that really can't be beat. Now again, none of this stuff is perfect, but it's a great feature to have, the compatibility with all this different stuff. Like this continuous light that's in front of me, it also communicates in the same standard with all the Godox system. It's crazy how much stuff they have going now, all meshed together in the same system. On the front, you don't have a Bowens mount, which can be a plus or a minus. It is what's called the Godox mount. So they produce some extra modifiers for that. You can get snoots or barn doors, and you can get soft boxes. These soft boxes, because the neck is so small, they can fold down really, really tiny, smaller than, well, normal soft boxes can go. It can fit it in a bag much more easily. But this ring here, I would not want to put a huge softbox on this in wind. And they do have some fairly large softboxes, but thankfully you don't need to do that. You can pop it into the S bracket and you can trust this to hold some decent weight. And that's what we do a little later on when we show you the photo shoots. And you can also get a Bowens adapter, which kind of beefs this thing right up. I'm not sure if I would even recommend that. All of a sudden, you might as well have a 400 or a 600. It's not the same. And speaking of which, one of the biggest features of this is just the size. This thing is tiny. I watched my earlier video and I find that the size of this really doesn't convey well in video, mostly because I think we use wider angle cameras and it makes it look bigger than it is. Let me get a lens. So this is my Sony 8514. and this is the AD300. As you can see, the 8514 is actually a little bit bigger around in its biggest dimension. So if you've got a space in your bag for a big lens, you've got a space in your bag for this. So that's a great feature. This is highly compact power. Additionally, you have backwards compatibility with the battery. Although this battery isn't exactly the same battery as in the AD200 and AD200 Pro, it has the same voltage specifications and they are interchangeable. So I can take out this new battery and put the old one in here, and all of a sudden, it still works. Now I'm not going to get the same stellar recycle times. Let's test this out here. Whoa boy, that's slow. So it's over 3-second recycle time when I put the old-fashioned battery in there. Now one question that I had, which I didn't want to try until I'd fully tested this AD300 Pro, is can I put its battery in an AD200? Because it has the same voltage, so it shouldn't be a problem. Oh, I got it in there. I had to push it a little hard though. She turns on. Let's crank up the power. It seems to me that they don't intend you to put that battery in there. And then put the old battery in, turn it on. No, you do not get a better recycle time on an AD200 by using this battery. That's a shame. That would have been cool. Slightly different batteries, but exactly the same charger. Same output, same current, same voltage, same product number. So if you've already got a bunch of AD200 battery chargers, you don't need to add another one to your charging wall. But I have some problems with the feature set. It would be easy to say it's a great, full, giant, wonderful list of features, but this screen back here, yeah, it's a brighter, nicer version of the AD200, AD200 Pro screens, but it's kind of a tired screen. There's not a lot of information on here, and when you go into this menu, oh, this menu is so old-fashioned. Come on, guys. I was kind of okay with it on the AD200 Pro because it was an evolution of the same product. But in the 400 Pro, the 600 Pro, you have a much better screen, much more versatile. And on the V1, you have a more versatile screen with more dots. Additionally, on the V1 and the 8600 and 400, you can scan channels and check what available channels are best to be used. You can't do this on this. So I kind of feel like the 8200 Pro and 300 Pro, they're kind of semi-pro. Because the V1 has some tricks up its sleeve, and it doesn't even say Pro in the title that these don't have. So I'm gonna say this feature set is 8 out of 10. Yeah, it's got a lot of stuff, but it doesn't have everything. Light quality. If you want to know everything about exact white balances and output levels and f-stops, go watch a video by Robert Hall. This guy has got some expensive meters and he knows what he's doing with them, and he's got all those numbers that you might want. What I'm here to do, what I'm always here to do, is to test this hands-on and push it to its limits to see how it works. When I talk about light quality, I talk about the actual results. So this does have a stable color mode. You can use that if you want. Generally, in the studio, that's worthwhile. As soon as you take this outside as an outdoor strobe, stable color mode is completely irrelevant. Why is that? Unless you're completely killing the ambient light, which you usually don't do. Just the clouds and the sky and the trees shifting and the sun moving minute to minute, your ambient light color is going to be changing by way more than the 200 Kelvin that the non-stable color mode in this shifts by. So that's not something I'm going to use a lot outside. Might consider using it in the studio. Now if you're doing stuff like product photography or very fixed headshots, you might want to use it there. So yeah, you do have the option of that super high quality color. Now let's have a look at the LEDs in this. People wanted me to compare the LEDs from the B2. Okay, here's the modeling light of the ever familiar AD-B2 with two 8200s inside it. And this is the AD-B2 with just one 8200 powering it. And here is the modeling lamp of the AD300 Pro. Now, this is what comes on by default, but if we hold down the lamp button, we can enter the lamp mode. We can up our power a little bit. By default, it didn't come all the way up, so that's interesting. And then we can scroll from 6000K, it started at 5500, in increments of 500K, down to 3000. So we've got 6000, 3000. I don't see any major difference in brightness between any of these modes. So this is shooting through an Aperture Light Dome Mini 2, and it has the extra diffusion baffle in the middle. So this is about as bright as it would ever get for me, because I always shoot through a double diffuse softbox, if I'm using a softbox. Now, it's really dark in here. This is ISO 320, 1/125th of a second at f1.8. So obviously it's not quite as bright as, say, the old ADB2, but same time, this thing's gigantic compared to the AD300 Pro. I would never have expected it to be any brighter than this. It's not really useful for videography unless you like to keep it real dark and moody. As a modeling lamp, it's useful to tell you where your light's going, but aside from that, it is what it is. It's a tiny thing. You don't expect that much from it. The killer hidden feature of this light is that once you mount it inside the S2 bracket, you can push it in further or pull it back out. And this allows you to actually do some ad hoc focusing of the light. You stick it in your softbox, you turn on your modeling lamp, and then you can see where your light is falling in real time. And then you lock that down and get the focus that you want in your softbox. That's actually phenomenal that you can stick this a little further in. Godox had problems in the past, like with the AD600, where the bulb wouldn't go quite far enough into the box to achieve nominal spread inside a softbox. So this lets you handle that however you want. High-speed sync, something that I always test. If we look at some examples here, it's a little better controlled than, say, an AD200 or a Flash, but it's not like the AD600, where if you have your electronic first curtain shutter turned off, it's a pretty good chance you won't even notice a difference. I really love shooting with my electronic first curtain shutter turned off as much as possible. It's faster, it's quicker. But when you go up into high-speed sync, you still, with this flash, gotta remember to turn that back on. Get both those shutters on if you're using a mirrorless camera, or if you're using shutter lockup mode, gotta have both those shutters, because you will, as you go up, start getting banding artifacts. Again, totally easy to mitigate, and if you leave your electronic first curtain shutter off all the time, it's no big deal, you won't even notice. But for me, gotta remember, turn that thing off when you get into high speed. Okay, enough with all the jargon. Let's do some photo shoots. So first of all, I had to find who I could find in these isolation times. I promise I will come back to you later on with some really cool epic photo shoots with this. So, we're starting out with the cats. You always said that you wanted more from the cats anyway, so here's Maggie, looking fine, looking resplendent. And here's Veronica, looking a little bit rotund. And then, once my son saw the cats having some fun doing this, he actually wanted in on the action, so he took some pictures of my son. Then we broke out the wireless trigger and did a maternity shoot. Got a lot colder than we expected it to, so we kind of cut that one a little bit short. I took an AD200 with the round head, stuck a CTO on that for the back because the sun disappeared behind the clouds before we had a chance to get out there. And again, we used the Westcott double diffused, and this tiny little guy shooting into that. It was between 1/2 and 1:1 power. So, light quality, overall, it's a 9 out of 10. Not quite as solid as like an AD600 Pro, but I mean, that's what we have scales for. Usability. Yes, this is a super usable strobe. It is not, I almost said pocketable, clearly not pocketable. It is easily baggable, convenient form factor, convenience, familiar battery, familiar chargers, easy to understand screen, slightly confusing menu system. If you don't have the manual, you might not exactly know how to get what you want out of it, unfortunately. This one's just a personal issue. We no longer have a solid power switch like you might have on the AD200 lineup. It's a soft button, so you have to hold it down to start the flash. A few seconds. Thankfully, to turn it off, it's just one tap and it's off. But personally, I'm not a huge fan of soft buttons. I want a hardware switch that actually kills the power to this. Why is that? Well, if this locks up or overheats or does something weird that I have no idea what it might be, can't predict right now, I want to be able to turn it off just like that and know that it's been turned off. Or, say I'm using this outside and it gets wet, I want to be able to turn it off. Thankfully, the battery's right there, right next to the power button, so that is a pretty simple, easy way to turn it off, but maybe call me old-fashioned, but I like a nice, quick hardware switch. Again, I have to dock at some points on usability for this old-fashioned user interface. The times are changing, Godox. Usually you're a bit ahead of the curve, but I'm a little tired of the screen. And so, we'll give the usability an 8 out of 10. Solid score, but not perfect. Value. What do you expect? It's a Godox product. It's gotta be a high number. But is it a 10 out of 10? Well, let's look at what this is up against. Some people might be tempted to only compare this to the Profoto B10, which is $1,700. This is $500. That's a pretty big price difference. If you slot it in with the Godox lineup, you've got the AD400 Pro at $650 above it, and you've got the AD200 Pro underneath it at $350. Now that seems like a pretty reasonable compromise. And that's what most people are talking about. But even further below that is the AD200 at $300. But what I want to talk about is the non-TTL AD600. This might have a fast recycle time, but the AD600 at half power will give you approximately the same amount of power as this for $50 more, and it can go all the way up to 600 watt seconds. Now obviously, we're talking about totally different size products here. But if all you need is light output, if all you need is something to make flashes, I don't think this is your best buy. You should probably go up to an AD600. And then above that is the non-TTL version of the AD600 Pro, which is $720. Yeah, that's significantly more. But again, for $50 more, and I should note, the AD600 non-TTL is often on sale for even less. That might be the one for you still. Don't let all these shiny things distract you from, what you can get the job done with, or even more of a job done with, for the same or less money sometimes. So, it's not a clear cut, but for what it is, for the color stable modes, for the compact size, I'm going to give this another 8 out of 10 for value. Comparing it against Profoto, yeah sure, it's a slam dunk, but against the Godox lineup, it's a little more complicated than that. So what does that give us? We add all the numbers together, we've got 41 out of 50. That doesn't seem like a perfect score, but for me that's actually a pretty high score. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Is it the flash for you? I don't know, it might be. You've heard my take. You've seen that I couldn't set it on fire yet. It's up to you to decide if it is for you. If you think it is for you, I'd be super happy if you could use my affiliate links down below. Helps me fund this channel and feed my family. And feed my fat cats. That's not a metaphor, I have fat cats. If you have any questions about this, let me know down in the comments, and I'll get back to you. I'm always hanging out down there. But until next time, don't fire this with the cap on, and go take some photos.